What an obedient audience. It's 7 o'clock and you all got quiet. Nice. Yes, school people. Hello and welcome. I'm Beth Johnson. I'm a member of the League of Women Voters of St. Louis Park. On behalf of the League, I would like to welcome all of you tonight, the candidates, the audience, and those viewing on the forum on Civic TV Channel 17. A reminder that tonight's forum will be rerun on Civic TV Channel 17 until the completion of the general election on November 7th. Tonight's moderator is Patty Robles. Patty's a member of the Wayzata Plymouth Area League of Women Voters. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization which promotes political responsibility through informed and active participation in government. The League does not support or oppose political parties or individual candidates. At this time, we'll note that Ken Morrison is now unable to attend tonight. The views in this forum are those of the candidates. Sponsorship of this forum by the League of Women Voters is not an endorsement of any candidate. All viable candidates have been invited. We encourage our League members, as we encourage each of you, to get involved in your community and the political party of your choice. We ask that you consider becoming a member of the League of Women Voters St. Louis Park and help us continue to provide the citizens of our community the opportunity to hear candidates discuss issues that are important to you. And for more information about membership, contact us at lwvmn.org and click on links. And at this time, we'll turn it over to Patty.
Hello and welcome. I am Patty Robles of the League of Women Voters of the Wayzata Plymouth area, and I'm the moderator for tonight's candidate forum for School Board District 283 of St. Louis Park. There are 8 candidates for the four-year seats on the school board. Candidates will make opening statements in alphabetical order. I'll list the candidates in just one second. Tonight's candidate questions include written questions from our live audience. Those submitting this forum, or those viewing this forum on cable TV channel 17 may submit your questions via email to jwheeler@stlouispark.org. Written questions for the League of Women Voters of St. Louis Park are also included in tonight's forum. We'll be using a timekeeper so everyone has the same amount of time to respond to the questions. We'll begin with the candidates' opening statements. Statements will be given in alphabetical order and are limited to 2 minutes each. Before we start, I'd like to remind everyone to please silence their cell phones so that we're not interrupted. We'll be alternating candidates, so each candidate gets to respond first to a question, and each candidate will then have 1.5 minutes to respond to the questions. So we're going to start with our opening questions, and we're going to start with Jim Beneke.
All right, thank you, and thanks to the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this event. I'm Jim Beneke. I'm one of the 2 people running for re-election to the school board besides Ken Morrison. I'm running for re-election because I love this community. I love our schools here, and I also I want to be able to be in a position where I can support public education. I'm a strong believer in public education. A strong public education system is essential for society that strives for universal equity and opportunity. So I want to be able to do that as a school board member. I also enjoy doing it as my role teaching mathematics at Normandale University, or Normandale Community College, I should say. I like Normandale and all the pathways they have for success there too. So Lynn and I moved here, how long ago was it? 27 years ago? So long ago, I can't remember. And we moved here basically because of the schools. We heard that the community all supported the schools, and this is where we wanted to be. Since there, I've been an active volunteer on numerous committees, both in the school district, for the city, some community groups, like I helped start Voyager's YMCA group for boys, and I also did a Lego League group for girls. There are many things I'm proud of that we did on the school district, passing the bonding referendum, which will take care of many of our important needs, passing a policy about bullying, passing a policy about gender inclusion. There's still a lot of work to do, particularly in the area of equity. I want to keep working on equity until it kind of is a lens for everything we do. Thank you.
Thank you. C. Colin Cox.
Thank you. I would like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this event. I would like to thank the people that are here in the audience, the people who are watching on TV, and the people who will be watching later. My name is Colin Cox, and I'm running for school board because we have a history of excellent schools here in St. Louis Park, and I want to continue that tradition. We have I want our schools to remain strong, smart, efficient, and effective. We do have that long history of excellence here. And we have a lot of distinguished alumni, both locally, known locally, and globally. But schools don't become successful just on their own. And a school can't get by just on a legacy of being excellent schools. We have new challenges that we are facing all the time. For example, we learned that we needed to do more in the world of race equity. And as I've talked to parents, as I've been out and at PTO meetings and talked to them and had coffees with them, I'm hearing of new challenges. And funding continues to always be a challenge for schools. And my background in economics helps remind me when I start thinking big and realize that we have limited resources. But we must think big, and we must think outside the box, and we must put children first. We need to look through things at a variety of lenses, not just economics or resources, but specific to a particular school. We need to also make sure that we are informing people. We need to make sure that parents are informed, that children are informed in the schools, that guardians are informed, that seniors are informed, and those who don't interact with our schools on a daily basis stay informed. I'm eager to be on the school board. I was the first to file, which I hope shows both my excitement and my readiness for this position. I'm also eager to hear from my fellow candidates tonight because I still have 3 other people I need to decide to vote for. Thank you.
Thank you. Jessica Janoski.
Good evening. Thank you all for attending this evening. Thank you again to the League of Women Voters for hosting this event. My husband and I have lived in St. Louis Park for 10 years now, and we have 2 children. One are both at Park Spanish Immersion. They're in 1st and 3rd grade. So I feel like I have a very invested interest in this school district. I feel that we have made a huge commitment as a community to the schools by passing the referendum 2 years ago. And we've seen the fruits of that. We've seen improvements to the schools. We've seen the schools move around, staff. So I'm very excited to be a part of that as we look forward to evolving and making this district strong, because it is already a strong community, and we have a lot of support for it. I want to make sure that the students and the teachers and our community are heard. I think that communication is key. There are things that have gone really well, and we've celebrated those, and then there's things that have not necessarily gone well, and we need to fix that. By fixing things, we'll of course have policy review. My background is in human resources, and we're constantly changing and evolving there. So I know that what I bring to the table will help the school district move forward. I'm just excited to be a part of this group and to support the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Leitner.
Hi, my name is Jim Leitner, and very happy to be here tonight. Very exciting time in our schools with the new facilities and with enrollment increasing. And we moved to St. Louis Park School District. My family did because of the high quality of the schools. We love the school district. My daughter went to all 13 years of school here. And the first staff person that we met and had a relationship with in the St. Louis Park schools was Senior Longnecker. And I remember that first interview, and he was impressed that my little Zoe knew the word gato and a couple other Spanish words. And he was really important because as a kindergartner, you have to go from knowing just a couple Spanish words to actually having a conversation in Spanish. Some important priorities that I really see, we need to work on the achievement gap. And part of the achievement gap, I would like to see a more diverse population in the Spanish immersion, the IP, the IB and the AP and the ESEO classes. I also believe that we need to have more kids going into the trades. And I think the trades need to be presented to students as a really good first option. I know young people that are in their 20s and they have a family, they own a home, and they're not strapped with a lot of debt. And you can truly learn while you earn in the trades. And we need to support them by having the classes, the home ec classes, the shop classes in the school system. Some things in my background that I think qualify me to be on the school board is I worked in St. Paul schools. I was a science teacher, and I was also a paraprofessional in St. Paul schools. And as a paraprofessional, I worked in the autism program and also in a program for kids with extreme behavioral problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Laura Mcclendon.
Thank you, League of Women Voters, for hosting this, and thank you all for coming this evening. My name is Laura Mcclendon, and I am a third-generation St. Louis Park resident. My family has a long history of serving this community, starting with my grandfather, who worked for the city of St. Louis Park as a health inspector for 35 years. My mother is a Park graduate, and she served in the Army. And my oldest nephew, who is class of 2017, he's currently serving in the National Guard. I myself chose to become a teacher to combine my passion for science and my desire to serve others. And as a practicing public school teacher, I can bring that perspective to the board of what's going on in our classrooms on a day-to-day basis. I am running for school board to serve all the students in our community, but to also give a voice and a narrative to our minority students. Attending Park in 1998, I was afforded a lot of opportunities that I might not have gotten in other school districts, but school was not always easy for me as I was part of the racial minority. My sisters, who also attended Park, and many of my peers had similar negative experiences that impacted our ability to be successful educationally. And as a board member, I want to continue to support the amazing programs that we do have at Park, but make sure that all students have opportunity to access those. I know that the board has begun and is continuing a journey of racial equity, and I want to be able to lend my unique perspective to that so that St. Louis Park is known as, and continues to be known as, schools that educate all of our students, no matter their background. I look forward to tonight's opportunity to share my ideas and my passion for education with you.
Thank you. Carrie Ross.
Thank you. Thank you to the League for the invitation tonight, and thank you for filling up the room. I really wasn't sure what to expect about how many people would come to an opportunity to hear us speak tonight. So thank you for filling the room. Thank you to my partners up here, sitting up here. It's weird sitting up here. I've sat in the audience before, but I've never sat up here before. I've been a resident in St. Louis Park for a little over 5 years. I moved to St. Louis Park with my husband and my daughter 5 years ago. My son and his family moved to St. Louis Park shortly thereafter, and my grandsons are students in St. Louis Park. And it's kind of fun to have our family all close by and being connected that way. I'm committed to supporting my community, my collective community, as we learn together to how to better support our schools. I think that we all agree we have excellent schools and we can all do better for each and every learner. And I want to be a thoughtful and an intentional board member that is focused on fostering instructional excellence for each and every one of our learners every day, from tall to small learners. I feel a kindred spirit up here with my fellow educators who are running. I'm uniquely qualified as I'm the only candidate that sits before you that has worked inside and outside of the district. I work with districts all over the state, working on opportunities for excellence. I understand the value of investing in teachers and how we can all work together to address what is currently holding us in the place that we are, and how we can work forward as a collective community to strengthen and increase our opportunities for
Thank
kids.
you. Thank you. Heather Wilsey.
Hello, thank you to the League of Women Voters for holding this forum. Thank you to everyone who's attending tonight. I am running for school board, and I'm trying to earn your support tonight. My family has lived in St. Louis Park for 6 years. Our daughters have attended St. Louis Park Public Schools, starting with Susan Lindgren, and now they're at the middle school and the high school. I'm a public school teacher with over 17 years of experience. While teaching, I've also volunteered with my within my children's classrooms at various PTO events, and for both of my children's sports teams. I am running for school board because I would like to bring the values that I have as a mother and as a teacher. I value connections, community, and an understanding of systems. And the reason I value these things so much is because of an experience that I had when I lived in Oaxaca, Mexico with my family. We moved there shortly after our youngest daughter was born, and we enrolled our older daughter in a preschool there. We wanted her to learn the language, and we wanted her to learn about the culture. She loved going, and she learned a lot, despite being unable to speak Spanish and looking very different than everybody else in the school. One day, I brought her to school, and I looked around, and I saw everybody was wearing sweatshirts and sweatpants, everyone except my daughter, and I didn't know what was going on. So I asked the teacher, as horrified as I was that I had missed something, and she said, well, it's Phi Ed Day. Everybody wears this on Phi Ed Day. And it's this experience of being outside of a system, because I didn't grow up within that system, and not understanding it, that I bring with me as I am running for school board here. I believe that we need to bring people in, especially the people who don't understand the system that we work within. And this is how I frame my priorities as a school board candidate. Thank you.
Thank you. As a reminder, each candidate will have up to 1.5 minutes to respond to each question, and we'll alternate candidates. The first question will go, or the first answer will go to candidate C. Colin Cox. To better prepare our students for their future, should the district continue to invest in K-8 IB curriculum, or should our focus shift to more science, technology, engineering, arts, and math? Please explain your answer.
This is a really interesting question. I've come at it from a couple different perspectives, and I'll try to make sure I can hit both of them here. But a couple weeks ago, I sat down with the state IB director and talked to him about IB, and had sort of an epiphany moment where I learned more about IB and what all are the possibilities and how we could be growing our efforts in IB. And that was a really interesting way, because as I learned by talking to him, there's so much potential in IB. There's so much potential to address so many issues. We even talked about the issue of classroom anxiety, and he said there's a role for IB to do that as well. So I think I'm really, I've bought into this idea of IB, and I know we've invested in it as a school district, and I think we should continue on this path. I do have some fondness for STEM, because I too have a bit of an education background. I've served as an educator as well and worked around education, but one of my positions was working and doing marketing for a science, technology, engineering, and math website for Twin Cities Public Television, and learned the value and saw what things like SciGirls does for students, which are really fascinating and great opportunities. But I think if I had to pick, I would lean heavily on the IB direction if between the two. Thank you.
Thank you. Jessica Janoski.
Helps if you turn it on. I also believe that the IB program is the way to go. I also think that STEM is important to our children as well, because it seems to be the direction of what a lot of districts are doing. So we have to see, I think, more results on both of these programs in order to make a better informed decision. But IB, I believe, is the best way to go as well for now until we've really been able to develop the STEM programs, because I don't think that the St. Louis Park District has put as much into that. So we have more to, I think there's a lot more there to explore.
Thank you. Jim Leitner.
I really like the IB, and I think we should go with IB. I know when my daughter was in high school, her and a lot of her friends were able to pick, have a mix of IB and AP classes, and that mixture served them well to take credits to college. I think IB is really good. It has a lot of different disciplines in it, a very universal approach, and I think it's good to keep that really challenging curriculum for all the students. All the students in the school district, no matter what their academic potential, need to have classes that are meaningful and challenging to them. And I think that IB is good to include a lot of kids in that class. I think it's a very well-balanced program with a lot of different opportunities to learn multiple disciplines. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Laura Mcclendon.
I myself am a science teacher, so I definitely advocate for any of the STEM courses and classes. However, I know that the district, including the teachers and the administration, have invested a lot of time and money into IB. So I think that just letting it go by the wayside would not be necessarily a good use of money that has already been spent. And from my experience in teaching IB, the two are not mutually exclusive. IB is more of a framework or a structure, and STEM classes or STEAM classes could easily be fit into the IB framework. So I don't feel that it would be a choice between one or the other. It would definitely take some work by the district and the teachers involved to see if they could fit together and how they would fit together. But I believe that St. Louis Park is capable of doing both. Thank you.
Thank you. Carrie Ross.
International Baccalaureate, or IB, offers or actually encourages the opportunity for interdisciplinary units of study. So science, technology, math, arts, all of those integrated in meaningful ways for students to discover learning. So I see the potential of them doing both as well. At the elementary level, just 2 years ago, the district invested in some really spectacular science curriculum that has some great connections to math and technology that hasn't probably been fully explored yet because it's still so new. So that could easily have some untapped potential to create some opportunities yet for student learning. And at the middle school as well, the interdisciplinary units that teachers continually refine and continually explore could be easily integrated into an IB framework. It doesn't necessarily have to be either or, it could be both.
Thank you. Heather Wilsey.
Well, my fellow teachers have taken my responses. IB, I see as a framework as well. And I know, especially from having 2 daughters gone through the middle school, that the technology piece is a required class that they have to take. And I know, obviously sciences too. They have had some great electives, such as robotics, that my daughter has taken advantage of at the middle school. And I know that my experiences at the elementary school with that overarching, as Carrie just referred to, science units and units that the children are learning have been just wonderful, and they do incorporate science, technology, math, and art. We felt very lucky when we moved to St. Louis Park because our children were allowed so many electives once they got into middle school. We came from Duluth, where you had to choose between an elective, music, and or language. And we just feel so fortunate that St. Louis Park allows our children to do all of those things. So I've been very happy with IB as well, and although knowing that STEM classes are extremely important as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Beneke.
Yes, I've been a fan of IB, or PYP, as it's called in the earlier grades. I don't think it comes at the expense of STEM or STEAM, if you include the arts. If anything, I think it encourages the synthesis of knowledge between math, science, and the arts. I think in St. Louis Park, we have managed to support the arts more than other districts. So I don't think arts is not being threatened by the existence of IB. And besides how the program can help academic skills, I think the program can also improve and teach interpersonal and leadership skills too. So I think it's a very great program that covers broad ground, both academically and socially. And you know, definitely nothing should be a sacred cow. If we can come up with a way to do all these things that IB does on our own, outside of the IB umbrella, you know, we should certainly do so. But I think that'd be tough to do. So, thank you.
Thank you. The next question, we're going to start with Jessica Janoski. What does it mean to you to evaluate and produce policies, programs, practices, and decisions for racial equity which result in equitable outcomes?
Wow. It's extremely important, I think, to make sure that we are creating policies. I get to do those often at work, and in fact, I do it every day. So you have to think about different aspects of how it will be affected. And so for racial equality, I think we still have a ways to go in this district. So creating a policy to make sure that it's inclusive, that it's diverse, and that it encompasses and celebrates everything that we are. We're not all the same. We all celebrate something slightly different, and it's important that we embrace that. With policy and creation, and you get to take it apart and get to put it all back together again to make sure that that everyone is treated equally and fairly. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Leitner. Oh, wait, let me check. Yep, Jim Leitner, you're next. Thank you.
I know that one important thing is to have more staff that that are diverse, so the students can look up and see somebody that looks like them, so that they feel more included and they feel like they can, you know, accomplish what staff have done before them. Sometimes there are language challenges because some of the kids are immigrants in the racially diverse population, and that makes for unique challenges because from everything from, you know, trying to bring the kid along in English to communications with parents can be difficult. I think staff training is a really important element. Trying to educate staff on how they can work better with a diverse population of students. When I was a teacher in St. Paul, we had a class for new teachers, and that specifically dealt with ESL students, and that was very helpful for me on learning to kind of see things more from the kids' perspective of what you know, them looking up at me, what they were seeing.
Thank you. Laura Mcclendon.
Are you able to repeat the question,
I
please?
am, absolutely.
Thank you.
It was a long one.
Yes.
What does it mean to you to evaluate and produce policies, programs, practices, and decisions for racial equity which result in equitable outcomes?
Thank you. As a board member, we would, or as a board, we would be producing policies that then the administrators, the teachers, and everyone who has day-to-day contact has to implement to our students. So I think that it would be very important to get input from the community, from the teachers, from the students. I know myself being a racial minority, I would have loved it if someone would have asked me how I could make our schools more welcome, how I, what were my thoughts, what did I feel needed to be done, and also would have reached out to the families in our community and asked them. And a lot of times that means going to where those families are, not necessarily holding something like this where a lot of families may not know or are not, it's not accessible. We need to close the achievement gap. I think that setting policies and doing the racial equity work that the district is already engaged in is critical. I'd like to say that as teachers, and this is from a teacher perspective, we're in the business of not only educating but of saving lives, and we need to move our racial equity work forward. So that would be the view that I would take as I engage in trying to produce equitable outcomes for our students.
Thank you. Carrie Ross?
You asked a really big question, and we had to work together to try to remember what it was, all the pieces and parts that you asked.
And I'm happy to repeat a question anytime.
Okay.
So please ask.
I think it's easier as a board member, in my experience, to produce policy than evaluate policy, especially when we're talking about things related to equitable outcomes and understanding how we evaluate racial equity. It's been my experience as a white woman educator that it's, when we talk about racial equity, we're not talking about students' outcomes, we're talking about how we evaluate the adults that run the system. And how we operate as educators and create systems that provide adequate access for all learners to make sure that they get what they need without exception, so that all of our learners can reach their fullest potential. And sometimes our systems are designed to get the outcomes we create with the best of intentions, but we only know what we know. And so we have to get to the right people, ask the right questions, ask the students, ask our community members, and ask questions that we don't yet know how to ask in order to be able to change those predictable outcomes for our students and change our policies.
Thank you. Heather Wilsey?
Yeah, thank you for that question. It's a lot to think about, and I agree also that as a board, we are a lot of times responsible, or we are responsible for policies, but the policies can be influenced by the people that we bring in. We need to hear the voices, and we need to have multiple data points on which to base those policies. We can't just look at the high stakes tests. We need to look at multiple different kinds of procedures, as you will, or data points, so that our decisions can be the best possible for the students and for the teachers. We need to look at curriculum, because making sure that the curriculum reflects our students is a way for them to be achieving more. And we need to build those relationships, not only with each other on the board, but with the community, with the administration, and like Laura said, thinking about the students and what their voice is telling us. So I think this is a really important question, and there's a lot of pieces to consider within it. But mostly we need to just remember that the children are who we're talking about here. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Beneke?
Yes, it's a big question. What ties it all together is that we have to make equity sort of the language of everything we do. So every discussion we have, every policy we make, we have to think about equity. And I could throw out many miscellaneous items, and I'll just try to mention a few in my minute and a half. Someone mentioned we have to hire more staff of color and retain them. That'd be an important thing. There are language problems. One thing we've been doing to address that is that the district does have community liaisons for families, parents who like the primary language is Spanish, Somali, and we also have a liaison now for American Indian. And these liaisons can go into the community and help include the parents and make them welcome in the schools. We've had the equity coaches that help the teachers reflect on how they teach. We should continue that. We should continue to think about our teaching methods, how to make the student feel included and in charge of their own education. We have to avoid negative outcomes. So we need to continue to make sure that there's not any, that bullying is not occurring. And I think maybe one thing we could do more of is try and figure out ways to support the emotional health of our students. Thank you.
Thank you. C. Colin Cox.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, a lot of people, going last, you have the benefit of hearing what everybody else has said. And I think we've had lots of really great ideas brought forward here. And I think about a couple of things, and I think sort of about that role of the school board again, and that policy and evaluation. And some of what I think I bring to this experience is being able to ask some questions and sort of poke at things through things, different committees that I've served on, whether it's a learning design team or on the start and end times committee. I don't know all the questions to ask. I don't have the same experience, but what I've learned by talking to parents about things related to mental health and things of that nature is that sometimes our policies harm people in more ways than we think, and we have to look tougher at these things, and we have to look more minutely at these things. I'm also reminded of, at work, I work for Hennepin County, and we have taken big steps forward in trying to focus on racial equity. And having recently completed a training, I'm left with this picture that they drew, and some of you are probably familiar with it, where you have the people standing in the equity and equality and the difference between the boxes. But the one thing that you miss sometimes is the fence that is holding people from seeing what's there. And sometimes we're missing the fence. We're not aware that we have a big wooden fence, and what we just need is a chain link fence. So not to leave on a note of fences, I just want to make sure that it's understanding that this is a big, important role for the school board.
Thank you. Jim Leitner, you're going to be first with the next question. How would you plan to make students feel safer while at school? And what is your perspective on teachers or staff carrying, if they should carry guns?
That's a real relevant one in today's world. I'm really alarmed at the thought of teachers having to carry guns, I'm really alarmed at the thought of teachers having to carry guns, and I don't like the idea of having drills for the kids for like situation awareness, shooter awareness. I think it trains shooters. They've shown that it actually trains shooters and what can happen. And I think it's turning our school system into like a jail. I mean, think of the horrible message we're sending to kids in the school system. I know that the school district has done some physical things in the school. For instance, the doors have been built so they're somewhat indestructible, which will keep kids safe in the classroom, and that's something that is done that isn't something that will shock the kids. I know there's a blue light system. We need to really focus on bullying, making sure bullying's not happening in our school system. A lot of the worst safety situations come from bullying, and also the mental health. I know the district is working outside the district to draw resources from health partners and religious organizations, and I think that's important.
Thank you. Laura Mcclendon.
I'll answer the second question or the second part. No teacher should not be armed or expected to be armed at school. How would I support or continue the work to make students feel safe and secure at schools? As Jim mentioned, I know that there are already a lot of things that are being done, the locked doors, the blue light system, the communication. Unfortunately, I know that there was an incident at the middle school last week, and I am on the email list for my youngest nephew, and the communication about what happened and how it was addressed, and if students needed to speak with someone, I felt that the school communicated with the parents and families very well. Bullying prevention, mental health services, social emotional learning, building relationships. Those are all preventative and proactive strategies that we need to, as a board, continue to support and fund, and just make sure that our students feel welcome and safe in our schools, because we know that for a lot of students, school is the safest place for them, and we want to be able to continue to provide that. Thank you.
Thank you. Carrie Ross?
I'll echo what my colleagues have said about our educators carrying weapons. I strongly agree that that is not the answer to having safer schools. I also would add that I know that our schools have a long history of partnering with our community support partners to ensure that our schools are safe and continue that dialogue. We're very fortunate in St. Louis Park to have our school boundaries contiguous with our community boundaries, and so it's easier, if you will, for us to partner with our police department and our fire department and other community partners to have those dialogues. And that's not the complete answer, but it is important to have those lines of communication open to plan for any events. And besides those partners, I also think it's really important to ask our students what is making them feel safe at school. What do they need to feel safe at school, and provide those supports. And should continue to do that and address some issues related to bullying and the social emotional growth. We have some pilot projects happening here in the state of Minnesota that are rather unique, and we can learn from that and continue to grow. And as a board, we can keep abreast of those things and bring those things to our community and bring those to our learners.
Thank you. Heather Wilsey?
Thank you. I should first of all say that I teach first grade, so some of my lens comes from the early childhood years, and I agree. I would never carry a gun, and I would never want my children's teacher to carry a gun. So, yeah, I agree with you on that. The next thing, though, that I would say is that, yes, the school district is doing great things with the remodel, making safer entryways into our schools, the heavier doors, the blue lights that were all mentioned, which are really important, because the reality is our children are scared, and they do hear about these things. It is our children's reality. And we need to validate that. And I think part of that comes with the relationships we build with students as teachers and as staff. So if our children feel safe in our schools, that will help in times of trauma and where there might be a threat or a supposed threat. I think also that the mental health support that we receive from our community partners is really important, and we need to continue that relationship in St. Louis Park and use our social workers and our counselors when our children do not feel safe at school because of bullying or for any other reason. There's new research out about the drills that we're doing at school and what that does to our students, especially our students who come from a background of trauma. So I think the board would need to look at those practices. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Beneke?
Yes, I'll just quick add my voice. No, the teachers should not have guns. We've always tried to make student safety a priority. So the first thing that was done with some of the referendum money was to improve the secure entrances at the schools and do the more sturdy bulletproof doors and items like that. So we're always trying to think about the safety of the students. We do have a good relationship with the city. I think the response time for a police officer to get there, it would be pretty darn quick. And because they're often there anyway, helping out with some program or another. So they're often in the schools anyway. So that helps a little bit. I do think we need to ask the students why they wouldn't feel safe and what we could do about it. And as part of that, we need to continue our anti-bullying campaign. I hear we've had some success and that some students think bullying has decreased. I've also heard maybe some reports that unfortunately sexual harassment is kind of a problem. Maybe we need to do more specifically in that area. We need to do more just in general about mental health, find a way, if we can't get more funding, work more with our community partners, or maybe at least we could have extra training for our teachers to recognize some symptoms of mental health.
Thank you.
Thank you.
C. Colin Cox?
Thank you. one of the things that I did previously was served on a learning design team, which is a very nice way of saying a facilities team. And when we were looking at things and looking at improvements we needed to make at the schools, safety was a big important one, and we made that part of the goals of what we put forward and recommended to the board to suggest to the community for a referendum. So we'll see improvements at the middle school, and we'll see improvements all around the place. So that was really key to us. And I think about another thing in terms of this, and heard echoes of this earlier, and former Superintendent Metz talked about when he was a principal at the high school and how he appreciated our school size, and that because we kept our schools at a decent size, he was easier, it was better able to get a sense of who the people were in the school and to know those kids on a more individual basis. And so I think it's important that we look at things like that in our school sizes. And finally, I think mental health is a big challenge, and I think the issues that we bring up sometimes are about bullying and things, but sometimes the things are way deeper than that. And I talked with a parent just last week about her challenges with mental health issue with her child, and how she can't find the right doors to get through at the school. She's doing everything outside of the school and working with all sorts of resources, but within the school, she's facing a challenge. And I think as a school board, that we have a role in helping people like that navigate things better and putting the resources behind that.
Thank you. Jessica Janoski.
Janoski.
I'm sorry.
It's a hard name. It's okay.
I have it printed out phonetically, but okay, thank you.
No worries. I also will echo the sentiments of just about everyone up here that teachers absolutely should not be carrying a gun. I can't even fathom having that occur. My daughter came home the other day and talked about the drills that they have to go through, and it hit home that day that they are all they are confused about why they have to do this. They understand that they're trying to keep safe, and I think we need to do there are, I think, a lot more that we could do there. Yes, we've fortified our entrances. We've put in these blue lights and these systems that tell children that there's an active shooter or there's an issue in the building, and I think that's all great strides. I just believe that this all comes down to mental health, and we really need to give our kids more resources. I know that in the middle school that we've got this telehealth type of program, and it's great that we have it in the middle school, but I think that we could use it in all the schools in our district. So it's really sitting down with the school board and looking at these things that that Minnesota is somewhat piloting. So I think there's more that we can do. I'm glad that we've done what we can with the money that we got through the referendum, but there's a lot more to do.
Thank you. The first answer will be Laura Mcclendon, and the question is, our district mission states that we will ensure all students attain their highest level of achievement. What strategies will you implement to ensure that our highest achievers are engaged and progressing?
I feel that, yes, we need to make sure that all of our students are achieving at their highest ability. How would we go about that? That is the million-dollar question. We have an achievement gap. I think that, that's part of how do we get, or that's part of one of the obstacles. And we need to be committed to educating all of our students. If that means looking at curriculum, and I believe that the math curriculum is currently under review. And when I was at a school board meeting, it sounded like they were looking at it, not only what they teach, but how they teach. How are they delivering the curriculum? And I believe that that work would then be brought to all the other subject areas. Graduation rates are always a measure. How are we supporting students to graduate on time, even if they have some obstacles in life? So once again, looking at the supports in the school, what are some more non-traditional pathways for students to meet and achieve at high levels? Definitely looking at community input, once again, from the students. So I would work with the board to set policies that would help all of our students achieve at their highest level.
Thank you. Carrie Ross?
So that question reminds me of a former board member, Bruce, who used to always talk about world-class education and how important that was for us as a community. And I do believe we have the great potential to do that. And as Heather mentioned earlier, we don't decide that just by one matrix or one piece of data. But certainly, we are held accountable as a public institution and to our community by public measures of that, which would be the Minnesota MCAs in reading and math and science. And we can do better on that particular measure. The math curriculum has been in review for a few years, and there's more work to be done with that. And it should be in constant review until we figure out how to be able to deliver academic standards in a way that is meaningful and relevant to all of our learners, how to make it culturally responsive, pedagogy, instruction-based for all of our learners, and how to be having high academic standards for students that are not yet at grade level, students that are at grade level, and students that exceed grade level, so that there's continual growth and development for all of our learners, not just one size fits all. And I don't know that we've quite figured that out yet, but as a board, I think we can provide great direction, especially with educators on the board.
Thank you. Heather Wilsey?
Thank you. I think one way that we can work on this is, obviously, as you both have talked about the curriculum that's up for review, having the students see themselves in the curriculum and making sure that the curriculum is rigorous for every learner. We have to have high expectations for all of our students, and our approaches to teaching it should involve some personalized learning, which is really where the teacher gets a chance to work one-on-one or in small groups with the students to really understand the students' learning. And in that way, teachers are able to collect more data and really see where the gaps are in the students' learning. And I also think that we need to provide multiple pathways for our students, so that there's not just, as you said, one size fits all. There's different ways for students to learn different things that, or the material in different ways that make sense to them. I think we need to remember that we are preparing our students as 21st century learners, and so that includes cultural competency. It includes some STEM pieces and art, and really making the curriculum relevant. And so making it relevant and interesting and something that everyone is able to grasp. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Beneke?
Yes, could you repeat the question?
Our district mission states that we will ensure all students attain their highest level of achievement. What strategies will you implement to ensure that our highest achievers are engaged and progressing?
All right. Well, I think the key phrase here, a couple others have mentioned it, is the multiple pathways to success. We need to provide that so everyone can find the spark of what they want to do and achieve that. I've heard it said that we shouldn't talk about achievement gap, because that implies there's a certain level that certain students get, and everyone else has to catch up to that particular standard. We should still instead talk about an opportunity gap. So I think we need to sort of build the capacity where all the teachers think that every student can succeed by whatever standard the student themselves pick for that, and that they are able to differentiate their instruction accordingly. The question, I don't know if it's implying that maybe some of our efforts on equity come at the expense of the high achievers, but if the question is asking that, I don't believe that's true. I think we can have each student achieve according to their own level. Thank you.
Thank you. C. Colin Cox?
So I think, one of the things, again, to go back to the IB thing, the IB and what we've heard some people talking about here really is a curriculum set up to help people do that, to really customize education for all sorts of learners and focus on that and making improvements and seeing that and for getting instant response to that. So I think it's one of our key resources that we have. We have a really high graduation rate. We're around 90% graduation rate. We've had about 200 National Merit Scholars. I think we just had 2 more that have been added to that list recently. So we're doing really well with a lot of students. But I think sometimes when we look at those higher achievers, some of what we're forgetting are people who might be in ELL programs, for example, who might also be high achievers. People who have challenges at home in terms of nutrition or sleep or other issues like that, or mental health issues. And so when we're really looking at highest achievers, we can't just be focusing on classroom activities or tests and things like that. We have to be looking at sort of the whole child and seeing what we can do to make sure that people are all successful and have all of the resources that they need to achieve success. Thank you.
Thank you. Jessica Janoski.
I think that there's a lot to unpack there. With students all learn at different ways and timing, and I think that we need to move more towards a personalized curriculum. And so by moving to a personalized curriculum, we're looking at the student and what they can do and how they can achieve it the best way. So I think that we need to bring all of these things, IB, STEM, bringing the mental health piece into it. It will all help the whole child to achieve. I truly do believe in this personalized curriculum, and it not relying on test scores. Not everybody does well on the same test. It's just making sure that that child is achieving in the best way possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Leitner.
And just in case people didn't hear it, no teacher shouldn't carry guns. I forgot to turn my mic on last time at the beginning, but the question, was how do we make sure it's challenging for the really high achievers? And I think it's very important that when you have kids that are willing to work extremely hard, maybe do 2-3 hours of homework a night, and I have experience. That's where my daughter was at. And that we really need to provide the opportunities for them to work that hard. I know in one of my daughter's classrooms, they actually threw money together and bought a coffee pot for the classroom because so many of those students did homework into the night. And I think that the school district does really well with high achievers, and we need to continue that. And having said that, I had said earlier, I think that we need to draw a more diverse population into Spanish immersion, into international baccalaureate, and into advanced placement. Also, we need the support things for these students. For example, the gifted classroom, and there's also other ways for the brain development in band, in the science extracurricular, like robotics and science challenges, and also things like debate and student government.
Thank you. Carrie Ross. St. Louis Park schools are great. What do you view as the greatest area for growth or improvement, and how would you work towards this?
That's a great question. I don't necessarily think of great as a destination. I think that being great is an opportunity for continuous improvement. When I think of being a learner, I think of being a lifelong learner. The more we know, the more we don't know. And so as we continue to know more about our communities, as we know more about our learners, we continue to know more about how to provide meaningful and relevant learning experiences that help them grow and develop as a whole learner. We've talked a lot about maybe we're great at providing excellent learning opportunities in some areas, but we still have a lot to learn about how to provide support for mental health or maybe some areas of STEM. So none of our school systems have all of it figured out yet. So I think our challenge as a board is to continue to do what's working well and provide opportunities to improve what is not working well. So that's our challenge, is to not give up on what's working well, and continue to develop and grow those areas where we can even be better yet. We're not done being great.
Thank you. Heather Wilsey.
I think the schools are pretty great too, but I agree with what Carrie said. We can always do better. And one thing that I know, the district has the largest kindergarten class in, I believe, 6 years. So we're getting more students in. And I know one thing that the district is striving to do is to keep the students here, and maybe to bring and to continue this trend of having more students here. There's a lot of options for schools near St. Louis Park, and we want to be competitive in that realm with families. And so I know that's one thing that really helps our schools, because the more people we have, the better we can be. I know that we are striving also to work with that opportunity gap that Jim mentioned. And so we really need to just keep looking at our practices and making sure that they're the best practices, and that we are looking at all learners, and not just the high stakes test results. So let's look at their growth and work with that and help our students along those multiple pathways to achieve the most that they can achieve. I know that the district is always also working on restorative circles as a way to counter some punitive discipline practices. We're looking at ways to keep the kids in school and not doing any expulsions or suspensions, because when the students feel supported and there's multiple stakeholders looking out for them, they will do better.
Thank you. Jim Beneke.
Yeah, St. Louis Park has always tried to be innovative and sort of ahead of the curve on our efforts to achieve equity. We're known for that, I'm blanking out, the name of the part in the high school where the teachers get together and team and talk about how the students are doing. What's that? Bar, thank you. And other efforts, they've always tried to run excellent preschool programs, and they've tried to, reading by grade level by third grade, and they've tried to think about how they help kids discover their spark, what they want to do in middle school. And so they've always been, trying to do all these things. We recently were the first suburban schools to pass a gender inclusion policy. We've tried to have a thorough anti-bullying policy. So we've done all these things, and sometimes the danger is kind of pat ourselves on the back, saying that we can do everything we want. I think we just have to really continue to dig deep. Like I just said, look for everything whole child needs, everything that's necessary. I think one thing Heather mentioned is important that we've been trying to do recently is restorative circles instead of just suspending kids. I think that's kind of thing's important. We're also trying to improve nutrition with the new building. Hopefully we'll be able to do better nutrition and just look at the whole child.
Thank you. Thanks. C. Colin Cox.
Will you repeat the question?
You bet. St. Louis Park schools are great. What do you view as the biggest area for growth or improvement, and how would you work towards this?
So I think the benefits of our schools are like thinking about the IB program and how that creates those world learners, and really it's about learning and learning how to learn. And I think we do a really great job at that, and so I think we have to continue to support that. We're a school district that doesn't have all the resources because of our size and because of what we've decided as a community in terms of what we wanted to put forward with a referendum. And so I think some of the things that we do where we're thinking smarter about how to do things, where do we want to put our resources, and I think about things like the St. Louis Park Schools Foundation and the work that they do to support things when we can't do all of that work. So I think we benefit from being this very specific school that's a draw for people who are really passionate about an intentional school and a school full of diversity. And I think that what we're trying to focus on that keeps us great is really focusing on supporting all those things that are about teaching people how to learn and be successful at learning.
Thank you. Jessica Janoski.
I believe too that we have a lot, that we're already a great program. I think we've shown that we are able to evolve and flex and change with the times. I think another area that we're really great in is our educators. Our educators are constantly working with our students, making sure that they're successful, that they're leading the next generation, and it's a wonderful thing to watch. I think that ways that we can improve are I have to agree with Colin, is that we have a long way to go, and the programs we kind of lack, when we compare to the bigger school districts and the programs that they have to offer the children. I feel like we still have some ways to go, and I'm going to echo again back to STEM. Like, although I truly believe in the IB program, I think STEM is one of those that we can really start to promote more in the schools. So it's so important that that we continue to evolve and again use those funds that the community has trusted to us to bring and make our children even more successful.
Thank you. Let me see, Jim Leitner.
I think a really good area for growth would be to encourage creating really good citizens. I know Edina has a program where students can letter and community service, and I think that's a really good idea to get kids really service oriented. And I know that that's part of the International Baccalaureate too. I think another thing to help them become better citizens would be to expand the mock election system so that almost all the kids would participate in it in the big election, the high visibility election years for national races. I think healthy life skills. One area the school system is working in is nutrition, and I think it's really good that we're having more scratch food made in the schools. I really like the SLP Seeds program. It's really cool that kids in the city can actually get their hands in the dirt, get a little dirt under their fingernails, pick tomatoes off the vines and eat them. Heather mentioned restorative justice, and I think that's really important in our world today because we have the highest per capita population of prisoners in the world in the U.S., and it seems like something I never hear talked about in the news. We need to figure out how we can reverse that problem, and also we need to. Thank you.
Sorry. Let's see, Laura Mcclendon.
I believe St. Louis Park schools are great. I am a product of Park, so very behind that statement. As many of my colleagues said, there's always room for improvement and areas of growth. I think the achievement gap is the one that we need to continue to address because it's nothing new. There are a lot of things that the district is already doing, the Read by Third Grade initiative, continuing to build on the racial equity work by examining curriculum, how it's delivered. I know that restorative practices or restorative justice is being implemented and trying to keep the kids in school. If they're in school, that's where they're learning. There are a lot of community partnerships that already exist for mental health. The schools are looking at being trauma-informed schools to work with those types of students, once again, with the aim of keeping the kids in the school. Some things that I would like to bring to the Board if elected and bring to the community in discussion is an increase in the trades, VOTEC, and STEM opportunities. I think that would build student investment and interest, once again, keeping them in the schools.
Thank you. All right, we have, this is the final question. So we're not going to go through the whole thing. It's going to be a lightning round. You have the opportunity in one word or 2 words to name your top priority if elected. One thing. And we're going to start with Heather Wilsey.
So just one or two words?
One or two words.
No pressure.
No pressure here. Equity and opportunity.
Thank you. Jim Beneke.
Not to be copycat, I was going to say opportunity, so I'll just stick with opportunity.
C. Colin Cox.
I think I'm just going to say achievement gap.
Jessica Janowski.
Safety and inclusivity.
Jim Leitner.
Trades and equity.
Laura Mcclendon.
Equity and the achievement gap.
Carrie Ross.
Educational access.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We're going to move on to our closing statements. And we are going to start in reverse order from our opening statements. So Heather Wilsey, you'll be first, and I believe you have 2 minutes for your closing statements.
Okay. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for having us here today. Thank you to the people in the audience and the people at home. As I've been out in the community talking to people, I know that there's a lot of support for our schools here. People are really excited about the work that our schools are doing, and I feel that community support. So my priorities, I've kind of mentioned some of them before, but I'm just going to reiterate them in closing. Closing the opportunity or achievement gap. I believe in personalized learning. I believe that this helps students at all levels of achievement, high, at grade level, and below. It allows the teachers to work one-on-one with our students in small groups, and then they can collect data that informs their teaching and fills in the gaps in student learning. It sets students up for success before those high-stakes tests. We'll have multiple data points to refer to, and then we can really look at student growth. Next, I would support, I know the strategic plan is up for an update in 2020, and I would really like to support the work that they're going to be doing, especially around curriculum. I've been part of many curriculum updates, and I believe strongly in it. I believe that students need to see themselves in the curriculum, and I believe that they need to be able to connect to it in order to achieve. The curriculum also needs to prepare our students to be 21st century learners by elevating each student's worldview and positively connecting them with the view of others. I believe that we also need to address students' basic needs. Students cannot come to school and learn if they are hungry, if they have dirty clothes, if they do not have a home, or if their mental health is not being taken care of. I know that we have wonderful community partners out there, and I'd like to continue to support them and even enhance them if possible. Again, I'm Heather Wilsey, and I'm asking for your vote on November 5th. Thank you.
Thank you. Carrie Ross.
Thank you. Thank you again for this opportunity to be here this evening. I'm committed to supporting our community because I understand the value of investing in our teachers, in our educational leaders, and in each and every member of our community. We can work together to address what is currently holding us where we are and bring us forward to our work collectively to be a better and serve in the best interest of our learners, to share our ideas, to share our perspectives, and take courageous action. This work is important to me because I am committed to the community, and our schools are the heart of that community. I believe in lifelong learning. I believe in supporting the core values of our district. I believe in providing access to academic excellence for all. And I believe in the responsibility of the fiduciary duty of the fiscal responsibility of the school board. I am ready to serve, and I hope you are ready to vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Laura Mcclendon.
I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum and giving our community members a chance to hear the views from all the candidates. If elected to the board, I will always keep the best interests of our students at the heart of all policies and decisions. By closing the achievement gap and continuing our work on racial equity, our district can make sure that all students have the skills and knowledge to be successful. By addressing the mental health needs of our students, we can support students' ability to not only survive, but also thrive academically and in their social emotional lives. I want to continue to increase opportunities, access, and support for females in the STEM courses, science, technology, engineering, and math, in the middle and the high school. My vision for St. Louis Park is that all students achieve at their highest level, and when they graduate, they are prepared for the next step in their life, whether that be work, college, apprenticeships, or serving. I'm also running for school board to be a voice for our minority students, which is a segment of the student population that unfortunately still feels marginalized and unheard. As a board member, I will be able to offer that additional perspective to the racial equity work that I know our community is deeply engaged in. I ask for your vote on November 5th. A vote for Laura Mcclendon is a vote for the city's students. Thank you for the opportunity to share my passion for serving the students and the community.
Thank you. Jim Leitner.
Thank you all for coming tonight. It's good to see a really good group of people here. One thing that we haven't talked about too much tonight is the school board passed a really good gender inclusion policy, and I think we really need to make sure that's supported and implemented as a school board. I like that in the long-range planning that there's a lot of talk about what kids are going to need in the future, not what they necessarily need today when they graduate or 10 years ago, because our world is changing really rapidly with technology and social media and everything. We need to make sure these kids are prepared for what's going to face them when they graduate. And one thing that we didn't touch on at all tonight, I think that our schools need to be eco-friendly, and I think that we need to teach the children about being eco-friendly. I did a little bit of simple math here, and the kids that are in kindergarten now, in the year 2100, they'll be like about 85 years old. So the kids today, they're going to live to see what happens with global warming and climate change. For a lot of us, I mean, we'll be dead before a lot of it happens. So it's understandable why a lot of the younger people seem very obsessed with this topic. And I also, really important thing for me is that we need to make sure that we encourage the trades in the school system, because it's just such a good opportunity, and I think it's been delegated to like a bad second or third choice, and I think it's a really good first choice for a lot of kids. And I'm very excited about running for school board, and I hope you vote for Jim Leitner for school board. Thank you.
Thank you. Jessica Janoski.
Again, thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting the event. There are many things that we need to consider and that I want to support through a tenure on the school board. The well-being of students, making sure that mental health is at the top of minds as we move through all the things with social media. There are something that we didn't talk about tonight is the vaping epidemic. You know, there's so much to do and so much to help our kids out with. They don't know how to navigate social media necessarily, and us giving them the tools to be able to do that is super important. How we responsibly take care of the funds that were entrusted to us by our community. Our community gave us a lot of money to do a lot of good things with our schools, improve them with safety, give them the programs that they need like STEM, and it's just, there's a lot there as well. It's not just supporting our young, it's also supporting our senior population as well. We have a lot of programs out there for our seniors, and we need to make sure that we continue to keep those going. Creating the policies that we need to ensure that the best outcomes will be had. I will support all of our community, again, not just young young and old. I will listen to your needs, your commitment, the commitment to our staff and educators and our students. I want to make sure that the schools are safe. We want to provide the necessary tools to be successful and encourage our students to speak out and tell us what they want. It's not just what we want, but it's what our students want too. So I hope that you vote for me on November 5th. Thank you so much.
Thank you. C. Colin Cox.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this event. I'd like to thank the people here in the audience today, the people who are watching at home, the people who submitted questions. My name is Colin Cox, and I'm running for school board because I want to continue the tradition of excellence in St. Louis Park schools. I want our schools to be strong, smart, efficient, and effective. To be smart, we have to work hard, and we have to ask tough questions. To be strong, we have to not be afraid of challenges and not see failure as something that we can't overcome. To be effective, we can't always do things the same way we've done in the past. To be efficient, or to be, well, that should be efficient. We can't do them the way that we've always done them in the past. But to be effective, we have to elevate all of our students and see success for all of our students. We must continue to look at things through a variety of lenses, including a race equity lens. We benefit here in this community from having a strong community where we have an invested city council, where we have great organizations like Children First, where we have people that can support us, like the St. Louis Park Schools Foundation. And we have an opportunity right now to set a direction for our school board. And we have 4 seats that are open, and we've heard a lot tonight from a lot of people, and it's a lot to think about. We have over a month to think about it, but I'm hoping that what I've articulated tonight has been enough for at least some of you to make a decision about one person you would like to vote for this fall. So I humbly ask for your support to select me, Colin Cox, to join the St. Louis Park School Board. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Beneke.
Yes, much has been accomplished these last few years, and there's still much to do. In very broad terms, like I mentioned, I think we need to make equity the lens for all we do. It should infuse every discussion we have. It should infuse every policy we have. Also broadly, I think we just need to continue to drill deep on what the whole child needs. It might include trying to figure out what makes a student welcome and included in the school. It might include mental health concerns. It might include basic needs, like someone mentioned. There's actually a fair percentage of students at the high school are either homeless or insecure housing. Maybe especially they need meals and support. Could be a long list. We need to find out what they need. Excuse me. Some values I hold dear are compassion, opportunity, and community. I think being a board member means that I will always be guided by the principle that all members of society deserve to succeed. What I bring to the board is that I'm a very collaborative person, and I try and develop an approachable reputation by always listening careful, being respectful to the other person, speaking directly and to the point, and following through when an issue needs more research. You can always count on me. I'd gladly talk to you over any issue. We could talk for hours. I love doing that. So I hope to get your vote this fall. Jim Beneke. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We received a lot of questions, and if you didn't hear your question tonight, the League of Women Voters encourages you to connect with the candidates to talk about the issues that are important to you. We want to thank all the candidates for caring enough about your communities and your schools to run for the school board. Thank you to the audience for participating. Thank you for the live audience, or the audience that watched it live, and the audience that will be watching the recording. And I'm turning it over to my colleague.
And thank you to our moderator, Patty Robles. A little bit of information here. Absentee ballots are now available from the city, or you can request a ballot by mail from the city clerk administrator. The phone number is 952-242503, or you can download and print an application at stlouispark.org/vote. The ballot must be received by the city no later than the day of the general election. For more information on in-person absentee voting, visit the City of St. Louis Park website. General election is November 5th. Polling places are listed on the city's website. Thanks to other members of the league, and special thanks to Jermaine, Patty, and the City of St. Louis Park for assisting with this forum. Thank you for coming. Good night.